Thank you very much, Francine. Good morning, everybody. Yes, today we're going to have a session for posting groups. And the idea of today's session is to review what it is, are the posting groups, and how do we actually use functionality within Business Central. So let's just begin. We have a 1 hour session, and as well we're gonna have a all right. We're gonna have a session as well after this 10 minutes, maybe for questions and answers, and of course we're gonna have time to actually explain everything behind this functionality. So welcome again, and let's start just now with the presentation. Posting groups is a connection. It's a functionality that helps us to connect specific requirements that we have in different processes for accounting purposes. The idea is to connect specifically GL accounts to different purchase or sales documents, and as well automate the actual posting with the correct accounting procedures. Since within NAB we also have specific functionalities. Actually, this is a European product, right? So we're going to check what are the posting groups, types of posting groups reviewed, explain the set of general postings, and then some specific posting groups. And then we're going to demonstrate how posting groups affect the sales transaction as a demo. So what are posting groups? We're going to define them as a functionality to create link between different applications areas such as inventory, customers, vendors, and the general ledger. Simple as. That's basically what we do. In the following diagram, we can just review how actually this workflow works. The idea is that, as an example, we're going to have a sales header line, right? The sales header is part of the sales order, and the lines as well will include lines of inventory or services. Once we post or we click on the post button, we're going to trigger the Business Central function to create the general journal lines that will be posting to our GL account. GL entry table is where we actually have all this information. And at the end, at the same time, when we post for as a sales order, as an example, we do not only affect the GL entries, we as well affect the customer ledger, which is the balance for the customer, so we can review what will be the balance for these specific customers and the detail of the transaction. And in any case, whenever we offer any item as well, we need to affect the item ledger, which is where we know how many items of how many units of any item we are selling, then we have. At the end, everything will be posted through a sales invoice, right? So when you actually create a sales order or a sales invoice as well, you as a user never affect the specific accounting procedures by selecting manually a GL account unless necessary. Otherwise, you would only focus on the selection of a specific customer and an item, and everything will be done behind the scene for you. So we have different type of posting groups. We can just basically classify it as three: the general posting groups, the specific posting groups, and tax posting groups. We're going to review all of them in order to understand what will be the functionality like. So let's begin now with the general posting groups. They are then just configured as trading operations, simple as, which applies, well, sales and purchases, okay? Trading then requires specific sales, purchase discounts, cost of goods sold, and inventory adjustments. Basically, we need to learn this part whenever we start configuring, and specifically the accounting people that actually is going to review how the GL or the chart of accounts structure will be. Since some of you, talking about sales as an example, might require a geographical area or a sales account by specific type of customer, large, medium, etc. But well, we can specifically for general posting dedicate the creation of sales account for a different type of income like services or a stock inventory that you sell maybe in a supermarket. You have a resale or retail type of items, and as well you have, I don't know, maybe warranty. You have technicians that after specific amount of time you need to send these people to provide specific maintenance service, and then you would maybe require a specific income account for any type of sale operation. The same will happen for purchases. And as well, another great or priority to consider that you might sometimes in the general posting setup table consider to generate different GL accounts for different currencies. So you don't mix while you reconcile your chart of accounts, well, in one single account, different type of currencies as well, right? Just as a couple of examples. Now, the idea then is just to make it simple. General posting setup table, for those of you who are just learning and you are hearing this for the first time, is for trading, sales, and purchases. This part of the setup that we do requires something. Okay, who? We're going to check that in the matrix in a moment, but we need to understand two basic concepts. When we talk about general posting, it's just a concept that we manage here in Business Central, right? But it requires anyway the learning of two specific combination to create one GL account. The first concept will be the general business posting group. The idea is who we deal with, specifies who sell to when we talk about customers, and who we buy from for vendors, right? So organize your company, organize your procedures for trading in a specific way, like for example, you have domestic or foreign trading transactions. As well, could be for specific operations like retail, wholesaling, etc. So we need that concept in your company so you can divide your customers for retail and wholesaling as well as your vendors, or why not for foreign or local. Very common to actually divide them. So we need that concept for you to keep in mind in order to start working with the posting groups. Very important. And some examples then are domestic, countries, regions, overseas, etc. The second concept would be related to your type of products in your company. We need to classify these products in a way that we are going to work with properly with specific GL accounts for the following examples. Raw material, retail, resources, and services. In other words, how you want to trade. Would you like to have a specific, talking about the second concept, specific GL account for if you sell raw material, right? Some of you who dedicate some of your activities to manufacturing or lean manufacturing, well, would like to dedicate as well, you can purchase your raw material, but as well, you don't only sell finished products, you as well sell raw material because it's in your inventory already. So you might need a specific GL account for those sales operations. As well, where you could separate a purchase account for raw material, a purchase account for office products that will be non-stock type of products. You might require a specific GL account for purchase for services, okay? So the type of product that you deal with also could require a specific GL account. So that's quite logic, okay? So the idea here is that we are going to start working with these two concepts together in order to get the specific GL account required. Let's take a look at how this works. The general posting setup could be complicated when we see it for the first time, but it's actually just a matrix, right? So the first concept that you need to learn, the general posting setup table requires GL accounts for trading. And this is the actual matrix that I was talking about, where we can see in yellow all the specific GL accounts required in this general posting setup table. And this is the first type of a review that you need to do in order to understand this topic. You are checking here that you have sales account, purchase, cost of goods sold, all right? All of these accounts that you actually have here are related to trade. right? So the first thing to learn is that we have GL accounts related to trade in the general posting setup table. And we are showing actually this because, believe it or not, this is most complicated criteria talking about posting groups when we are trying to set up Business Central. The other ones that we call specific are just more, are simpler, right? Are more easier to understand because they are quite direct. I'm going to talk about that after this. But let's now begin with this. The first concept is that we handle GL accounts for trade in this matrix. The second concept, talking about the same metrics, will be the first concept that I explained you before, the general business posting group. This is when we want to configure your company, we will provide, and we are going to ask you first, well, when we provide the Excel templates to import or configure your company, or afterwards with this type of webinar, well, you could clarify your accounting procedures by understanding this. The first then for the general posting setup will be the general business posting group. Okay, talking about, as an example, sales or purchases only. Okay, this field is set up in the customer or vendor card as well. So in the first column that you can see here in yellow, this is the question, who? Okay, well, in this case, who am I selling to? Well, I'm exporting, or this is a domestic sales operation. For the actual first question is who? And then you need to open your customer or your vendor card, and they classify that type of customer or vendor as required. In this case, in the field general business posting group, we have as an example the domestic type of customer. Anytime we classify one of our new customers as domestic, well, you could verify in the general posting setup all the domestic general posting group type domestic in this yellow column to verify in combination in a second step with combination with the type of product which account will be selected for sales. For services, well, in combination with domestic and domestic customers and local services, the account will be 42,100, right? But the domestic in combination with the retail products that, as an example, I just purchase and sell, will be the 44,100. But as well, we have in this manufacturing company that we use as an example, well, domestic type of customers. When we sell raw material, well, we decided to select a new account, which will be the 43,100 for the sales. Why? Because it's critical for the company to select and do not combine in order to create BI reports. For instance, for replenishment, as an example, we would review the demand or the sales history, and sometimes it will be necessary as well to review that in an accounting procedure to calculate as well maybe the profit for the raw material, the profit for the services, or the profit for the retail type of product. So there are a lot of functionality when we are actually trying to divide, but that's up to you. You're the accountant, you're the financial reviewer or the controller. So the idea is that you have the possibility to generate multiple trading accounts for sales and purchases according to your functionality to make the information and your criteria more logical. Then, once we do that, and we need to actually incorporate that type of setup to your system, well, that's why we generate the posting group. And in this matrix, the first concept is to divide your vendors and customers according to your criteria. Like this, maybe it's as a good example. The second step will be to actually work with the general business. Let me just, general product posting group. This is in the same matrix, we have the general product posting group with the type of product that you have in your company. As I mentioned before, I have services, retail, raw material, and well, if I have raw material, surely I'm gonna have finished product account. So why not to generate, in any case, when I sell the finished product or the raw material, I would love to separate those accounts. And well, in order to get, as I mentioned, specific profit or specific BI reports later. But for that, I'm just mentioning here that we need to apply to any item we create in the item card, as well that specific field, general product posting group. in this field, we are going to generate what type of product we are handling. Is this a service? Is this a non-tax or raw material, finished product? So you could classify in your company those two concepts. And like I mentioned before, what we're going to do is combine these two specific ideas into one to select the GL account. Remember, related to trade, when we talk about the word general. Once we get this concept, I'm just having here a specific usage. So then we have the customer and the vendor as well. So we generate the general business posting group. This is just a simple diagram for you to learn easier, because just by having an explanation through the system and the ERP, sometimes, believe me, is quite cumbersome to actually get the idea. But the matrix is explained as in this diagram. So we need something that needs to be configured in the customer or the vendor card that will be part of your transaction line. Then we need the actual coming from your item card. We need the same fields as well. I forgot to mention, we have another type of a component that could generate a GL account transaction. And it's not only the item, but as well our resource. Okay, not to be explained at this moment, but our resource, just to mention it, is, well, sort of a product that we sell, but it's not a specific inventory. This is actually maybe a machinery, or could be a person that actually attends specific service. Okay, so once we have this, well, we could as well generate a transaction. Okay. We are going to select then a specific GL account in combination with these two procedures. Remember, customer or vendor, and then the item or the resource. Here is where we configure all of this in order to get this information. General business posting group in combination with the general product posting group, we just need this type of accounts. Hopefully this is clear, and with these diagrams, it's going to make the things more easier. Actually, I was giving some training to some of our consultants, so we reviewed that. Well, this is not an easy topic, so I'm going to give this presentation whenever you need it, because it will be important for you to then review later. Remember that we are as well as certifying some of you whenever you actually have some training with us, with Optimus. And the idea here is that you get these procedures automatically as well as we do. But remember, this is very important, because at the end as well, you might not only when we implement as consultants, but it's very powerful for you to come into Business Central or Navision and review this by yourself. Why? Because whenever you need to post, in this case, a sales or a purchase order in the trading procedure, in the trading transaction, well, you might wonder why Business Central is giving me some specific GL accounts for my trading, right? So, well, here is the solution. Here, in combination with the items you are purchasing or selling and the vendors or customers you are using, then you are going to be able to easily find the specific trading, either sales or purchase accounts you are using. And here is just a specific type of sales, GL accounts required, okay, in this matrix. So this is the basic idea. Very good. So with this diagram, hopefully everything becomes easier. All this explanation is here summarized in this simple procedure in this specific chart. Okay, let's go and let's just move from here. Now we are gonna review all the general posting groups, okay? So we have the customer, the vendor, the item, or the resource, okay? And here we're gonna generate the specific transaction lines that you see in your documents. Remember, this is all general, okay? All the information you require for the general posting groups related to trading is in this last diagram. Okay, let's go now and let's move to the specific posting groups. The specific posting groups are in one simple diagram that are created with the same results with some trainings that we have here in Optimus. We would like to offer you a summarized material within a presentation and with the webinar for you to understand easily this part. Then we are going to need some specific other GL accounts, of course. All the operations are required to have a GL accounts, and we have all these lists. We need an accounts receivable, account payable, inventory accounts, and WIP accounts for manufacturing. Then also we require bank accounts. Remember, you make transfers, you deposits, make deposits, etc. And if you are actually working with the fixed asset posting groups as well, we require these GL accounts with the depreciation accounts, acquisition costs. We need some specific module or set of accounts for fixed assets to import your balances whenever you post a maintenance for your fixed assets, whenever you need to post maybe increases or write-offs for your fixed assets. All of the different procedures for fixed assets require a GL account, and that is not manual. When we do the procedures for all of these, we have as specific posting groups as well. The idea is that the user is not going to select the GL account. He is never, imagine that all your users need to learn all of this. So the idea for us in this webinar is that you automate this by yourself. The last thing to do is a tax posting group. The tax business posting group, well, requires specific configuration that could be quite advanced according to your taxes criteria. In the USA, as an example, is quite complex since by geographical area, the taxes could change. And most of the countries in Latin America actually just require specific taxation by country at most, but mainly by product, right? The type of product. We have non-tax products, non-taxable, taxable. Sometimes at most we have some taxes for your country, the state, the government retention that you require, basically, right? So as well, we are going to request some specific GL accounts. Let's then take a look at the following. You need to access to the vendor posting group to generate the account payable information. And well, with this, by the way, when we open Business Central, this is the actual topic. You need to find the general posting groups that we explained before. And here coming with the specific as well. In the title, just look for the vendor posting group, all right? And with this, we can open immediately the following matrix. Okay, the vendor posting group, look for it in Business Central or Navision in your magnifying glass. And with this, the following matrix is going to open. And this matrix, the vendor posting group, is required whenever you need to apply an account payable for your company. Okay, the vendor card, then, once we generate the vendor posting group, as an example, we have domestic, European Union, or foreign. Okay, and we need to classify your vendors for the accounts payable procedure. Normally, we would just dedicate one single account payable procedure, but sometimes accounts payable as well require for domestic or foreign type of vendors require 2 GL accounts sometimes. So the idea is that we generate the different type of vendors we have for the accounts payable purpose. Okay, and as well, just generate and we link the GL account required in this matrix. We're going to see it at the end of the demo how it looks, of course, but the idea is that you need to learn first all the specific type of posting groups. The second one, but as well very important, the customer posting groups. This is required for accounts receivable. And how we do it, we open Navision, we look for customer posting groups, or as well, we could navigate to the administration module in order to open the following matrix, which as well requires that you group your customers in terms of the AR, as well could be domestic or foreign more commonly, because you sometimes according to the different AR procedures you have, you sometimes need to separate currencies, okay? Your local and the foreign in order to report the overdue balances, etc. So your reports do not require specifically to have different lines and columns with the exchange rates, etc. Right? So just as an example, right? You could use it maybe only with one AR account. But the idea is that if we receive your chart of accounts and you tell us, hey, I have this accounts receivable account, I want to use it with any sales operation that I just paid with on account payment method, all right, for a customer to provide credit limits, etc. So with that, we would need to configure your GL account, your receivables account into this same matrix. For the domestic, or foreign, well, we just come, open the system and input the GL account that you tell us. Then as well, with the same classification required in any of these different lines for domestic, European Union, or foreign, and with the specific GL account for accounts receivable, at the end, we just need to open the customer card. And here we just need to look for the invoicing tab and look for the customer posting group field, where we are going to classify your customers according to your criteria. In this example, domestic. Once we classify one of our customers and we generate a sales transaction, well, then we are going to be able to know which AR account will be used for this procedure. The customer posting group for domestic classification would be using, in our example, the account 2310. Let's go and continue with the bank posting group. The bank posting group is used, well, for the bank accounts. Then we need to generate, well, we have large explanation we have behind all of this, because we reconcile, we make deposits, we make transfers, etc. But at the end, it's very important to understand that we generate a subledger functionality called bank account by itself. And in the bank account card, it's like the customer or the vendor. It's a subledger that is going to help us to keep some controls, right? It's not only about the chart of accounts, but now the bank account card is going to help us to actually generate all the deposits, all the transfers to other banks, make the reconciliation, a lot of procedures behind that bank account card component. But as well, we are going to need to link the bank account with the specific GL account. So what we would ask in this case is, tell us how would you, for the bank accounts that you currently have in your company, how you use them. Maybe you would like to as well, as usual. You know that any bank offers a bank account only with one currency, right? Maybe you have two in your company, one for dollars and one for local currency. So let's generate a code for that. I have generated the local currency one, which is the account that I use, bank account that I would use more, and the local currency too. As well, I generate a bank account for different currencies as an example, right? And another account that I use for a petty cash that I just called operating type of bank, right? So I have with American Express, with a Bank of America, or your local bank. So we need, and we could, I don't have time to explain the bank account card, but we generate all your banks, right? But at the end, the idea is any bank has a link with one single GL account, okay? That's the rule for the bank posting group. That is a specific type of posting group, and it only has a relationship. It's not like the general where we were combining two fields. This is, the specifics only require one single or relationship one-to-one. One GL account for every bank. For the same for AP. One AP for one specific vendor, and that's it, okay? And that's why they are called specific. Let's go with the other one. We call inventory posting groups, okay? So we need to understand that even though the inventory posting group is a combination within two fields, this is still specific. Let me explain you this part. So in this matrix, when we open the inventory posting group, what we want here with this specific functionality or with this specific feature is to generate an inventory account to be able to either decrease or increase the value in our accounting procedures. Once we actually make adjustments, when we purchase, we would increase our inventory. When we sell, we will decrease our inventory accounts. As an example, then I have generated many inventory accounts in this example for you to take, but the inventory accounts will be then divided for the specific type of products: finished, raw material, resale, and here we can see the inventory posting group. This is not related to the other product that we saw. That's for purchases. But we are going to need one for inventory only. And this is when you need to decide, well, according to your procedures, would you like to have only one inventory account? But sometimes you need to be quite or more specific when it comes to inventory. Very important, of course, because sometimes we need to, for instance, have a GL account for raw material, have another GL account for finished product inventory, right? So at least we to separate, as an example, in manufacturing, we always separate this type of accounts, okay? And how then we do it? I want to have an account for finished product whenever we post a manufacturing order, and as well raw material. But for resale, we would use an inventory account for those type of products that we do not, all the companies do not always manufacture their selling products. Sometimes they just purchase and resale, okay? I would like to have an inventory account to know the value for that type of inventory transaction. Well, you just need to configure this specific, you need to subgroup your items in terms of how your inventory would like to be divided. And then in combination with the location code, okay, the location code is basically a warehouse, okay? And this is because the cost of having the value of the inventory that you have in all your warehouses, this only applies when you have a multi-site environment in different geographical areas or even different countries. For instance, when you import something from another country, right, it has custom additional expenses, right? So in order to pay for insurance, in order to pay for customs, for freight services, okay? So you might understand that distribution has a cost. And that's why in different warehouses, we might have different value for the same item. So that's why we would need the specific warehouse name that is located in any geographical area with the type of product, because sometimes it is very important to understand that in different warehouses we have different value for your different products. Business Central as well is designed to actually handle that whenever you need it. If not, if you only work in a specific country with no additional or insurances or customs or even freight services, you might have already included that in the item cost. But we have item charges for freight, we have item charges for maybe you're required to hire FedEx or DHL or another type of service with another provider that you need to pay for that, right? So, well, in this example, we will be adding more costs as well. But in order to select the inventory, we just need all the criteria behind the type of product and the warehouse location. Once we define all the combinations for those two variables, then we can generate a specific inventory account, and this will be used automatically by Business Central. As an example, I have a location called Silver. This could be a main warehouse maybe, but whenever I have finished product after I have finalized the manufacturing procedures, after I have consumed my raw material, well, I will have a value. So all the components required for a bill of materials have a specific cost, and all of them will be in the account 14300. But whenever I finish the actual manufacturing procedure, I will be having at the end a final product cost. Well, I mean inventory, sorry, but they are the same in terms of the value. But the inventory account, it will be then changed to, and the value will be transferred from the account 14300. Whenever we finalize our manufacturing procedure, the raw material is consumed, and then we credit this account and debit the account 14200 for the finished product value. So that's why inventory posting group it could seem quite complex, but it's very, very easy. And the only thing is that we still consider it to be specific, since it do not necessarily requires two different values. Even though we have them, the inventory posting group or the location, well, the location is just selected once and that's it. We are not playing with the different values. The Silver will be always having the same GL account for finished products, always, always, always. And the white warehouse will have another GL account that will be completely fixed for the finished product as well. So that's why they are called specific even though it has some variables, but they are not changing. At least the location will be always having the same inventory account dedicated to that location. Okay, continuing with our presentation, let me just finalize with the with the previous window. Oops, let me just continue. Let's just begin with those two. But as well, once we generate, we're gonna have the fixed asset posting groups and the tax posting group in another session, since they are more complex, okay? It's not that I don't want to show you the fixed asset or the tax posting groups, but by themselves, we have a specific webinar for fixed assets, okay? And a specific webinar for taxes configuration. Why I'm not showing all of them in one single webinar? Well, because the fixed asset is actually an entire model that has a lot of procedures that at the end are more complex than just selecting a GL account. Why? Because we might in one single transaction post depreciation, acquisition costs, taxes. We might affect sometimes inventory, sometimes when we buy machinery. We as well would like to have some other components that we would select. And for instance, it's very complex when you have an asset that requires maintenance, right? Let's talk about machinery for a production line. That is not, when we provide maintenance to an asset, we do not only purchase and generate the spare parts and the expenditures of maintenance as the part of a maintenance, a procedure that generates expenses, but as well, we might be affecting the value of the asset directly or indirectly, because whenever you provide maintenance to a specific asset, you might be decreasing or increasing the value according to the new spare parts or the procedures applied, right? As well, let's imagine that we have land, we purchase land. Well, land normally do not depreciate, so it has more complex procedures to understand that actually are going to give us, at last but not least, a GL account, yes, but that will be then separated to the specific fixed asset webinar. And as well happens the same with the tax posting group explanation, saying the taxes as well. Well, it's obviously not to, just to mention, they are different by specific country. That's why I wouldn't have time to cover all of this in one single presentation. So let's review just the basics one, just to begin to learn. And I'm going to now open Business Central. Let me just open in this moment the interface to the ERP. 1 second, and here is the link. Okay, once we access to Business Central, I'm going to show you where is all of this, how you see it, how you look for it, and I'm just going to use a transaction for you to see how actually everything is, all the GL accounts are selected automatically, right? So let's open in private window just for some specific configurations that I actually have. So very well. Now let's sign in. And here is this user for 1 year. Okay, while I'm accessing as well this procedure for posting groups requires some practice, to be honest. So I strongly recommend you to see the webinar or ask for the PowerPoint presentation to actually have it, because normally when we see the information for the first time, it's easy when the consultant explains some concepts, but believe me, it happened to me when I was actually trying to work with this functionality. Was quite confusing sometimes. Okay, now let's review the general posting setup. Here it is. Okay, so this is what you need to look for when you are studying. Look for this sort of titles in the presentation that I created, and I'm going to send it to you whenever needed. And here, that is where we set up all that I was talking about. Here, if I just select from, I could just create the general business posting group, okay? And we have the second concept, the general product posting group. This is for the general posting setup. Remember, this is the most complex, okay? And here you can see that once we generate the combination, for instance, only we have domestic and foreign. So we expect to have all the combination with the domestic type, with the different type of general product posting group. That would be meaning that I have no tax, retail, and services type of items. Once I actually do this, well, I would combine these both variables together until I have for domestic all the combinations with the different type of products. So you can see I have domestic with no tax, domestic with retail, and domestic with services. Okay, so combine all of them and start selecting. Remember, if you remember, this is trading accounts, sales, cost of goods sold, inventory adjustments, and of course, purchases related GL. Okay, so this is why this is called general. Okay, it has two columns, and we are just combining the domestic with all the general product posting group. Okay, so in your company, you can do the same according to your criteria, just combine them, and you could immediately, by selecting in these three dots, all the GL accounts are available. So as an example, for this webinar, I created two income type of GL accounts. In my income statement, I generate income when I sell services, and I generate income when I also resell products that I purchased before. So I have two GL accounts, and they are completely different with completely different operational procedures, and even some of them are sold in the POS or LS retail. Most commonly, we implement so many of you have LS retail, right? And we have that. But as well, another procedure could be services. Well, now we are recently implementing field services. And of course, you don't want to mix your sales that are in the stores from the sales that you have when your technicians go and offer the maintenance services. We never would mix in the operational procedure in order to calculate profit, in order to calculate some BI analysis for the sales by a region or something. We would never combine these two transactions or type of transactions together. That's why I separate them. Okay, because that's a logical criteria. Then since I use that for services and the resale, I would say, okay, for domestic sales or purchases, in this case sales, I would select the account for 14,200, okay? And let's say that for the services, I would then use the account for income services, okay? So if you can see then, by selecting for just the domestic type of trading, I have retail and services sales operations, and that's why here I selected two different GL accounts. You get it? So once you select this general procedure, general posting setup matrix needs to be completely filled with all the other accounts. We are going to need a sales credit memo account. If you offer discounts as well, part of your income or deducted from the income statement, we will generate a sales line discount or invoice discount account that will be deducting the original profit, specific discounts that you offer, and then we would get the actual profit coming from the gross sales operations. Okay, so as well, just to mention it, we handle prepayments in Business Central. Very important to generate all prepayment accounts. And remember, general posting setup dedicated to purchases. We have the purchases, purchase credit memo. As well, we could purchase with discounts that could be decreasing the debt that you have with your vendors. But as well, we separate the purchase expense from of course, the actual discount that we get. So we are going to need an account for these discounts. And since we are working then with purchase and sales, okay, this is quite cumbersome to understand the first time, but we need a cost of goods sold account because whenever we sell, of course, we need to calculate the profit for you by deducting the inventory value with additional charges. That would be, I mean, insurance, freight services, or other type of procedures. For those of you who handle manufacturing, well, you do not only purchase raw material, you need to pay for electricity bills, water, wages, machinery usage, maintenance, etc. Those are as well cost of goods. Okay, so we add them and we post them into the specific yield account that you provide us. And here we have a funny combination. Whenever we purchase now in Business Central, let's go now to the purchase side, we require a purchase account like you see here. The purchase account is going to then be used to temporarily, remember this, mark my words, temporarily post into this account. In this case, whenever I purchase a retail product, I would normally use in the P&L a specific purchase account. Basically, that's it. Okay, but now in Business Central, in the European accounting procedure would be the following. We are not going to leave the purchasing value into this account. We are going to offset. We are going to use a interim account to offset the value whenever we purchase. We post into this specific 10700 account, and then later we use this account as well to the direct cost applied account. I selected the same, okay? But remember this is the most complex procedure to understand when it comes to posting groups. We are going to need to first, we're gonna use the purchase account, right? To debit your cost for the purchase and then credit with the direct cost applied account, this one, so we can actually make the balance zero to then transfer this same value we had in the P&L previously and then debit the actual inventory account when it is stock. Okay, remember this. We are going to take the original value that we actually had recorded in the P&L, and if that's going to be your inventory, we are going to transfer the value once the purchase. This is the second step. Once we invoice your purchase order, we are going to transfer the value from the P&L specific expense account or purchase account that you require. And then with the direct cost applied account, right, we're going to debit that value. We're going to credit that in order to debit your inventory. All right. At the end, remember, that's your inventory, and that's why we are not going to handle that. And whenever we purchase, we're not going to leave the value in the purchase section in the P&L. This is just a normal interim procedure, right? In interim account that we use in order to just record the purchase value until we invoice it, and then it's considered your inventory, and then that's why at the end the value of any purchase considered to be in stock, inventory as stock, the value would be in your inventory account. Okay, just as an example, please review this once or twice. Specifically, the general posting setup is not easy. And now let's just take a look at other ones. So the vendor posting. I'm just going to need to as well not only check the matrix, but where do we configure? Okay, now let me just explain. I'm going to, from the previous concept that we reviewed in the presentation, the idea is that I have to select account receivable, account payable, and the bank account. Okay, let's start with the vendors. I'm going to open now the specific vendor as an example that is called fabric. Okay. I need to classify for AP purposes which vendors will be local for my local currency that I have here in dollars, and then which vendors will be foreign, because I will then use for these foreign vendors other procedures with exchange rates, right? That will be calculating then specific purchase value to local currency in my chart of accounts. Not to mention that in the chart of accounts, we as well can handle multi-currency. It is not a problem. Or reporting procedures, we can generate any currency that you require, both at the same time if you need. Okay, any currency could be reported. Now, but for me, the important part for me in this webinar is to understand the general business posting and the vendor posting. These are two different fields that I have in the vendor card. The general is the one. General business posting group is related to the general explanation that I had just done before. Okay, and now continue. Now let's just change the page and let's go to the specific type. I'm just going to now review the vendor posting group where I have all this type of specific type of vendors. But for me, this is a domestic vendor. I would use an accounts payable with local currency for this vendor, and there's no problem with that. But how, if I just classify this vendor as domestic, as in my example, how to know which GL account will be used whenever I purchase to this vendor? The answer is going to come whenever you review the vendor posting group. Here it is, okay? The vendor posting group requires just the classification of your vendors. Let me actually delete these are not correct ideas for to begin. Okay, we only have two, domestic and foreign. Once we have this idea, this is because I have different currencies. That's the only purpose to divide my payables account. But any activity related to payments, well, we are going to generate one payable account. Here it is. I have different accounts payable for a local and foreign. I have as well other type of in my liability section of different type of GL accounts. But the important for now is the accounts payable that is configured in the vendor posting group. So you need to classify the vendor as domestic, and the domestic vendors or the vendors that were classified as domestic are going to handle the account 2100 in my liability section to post any AP, any debt to any vendor, correct? We do not only have that functionality. It's very important to understand that we need a payment discounts account. It's very, very important whenever you use them. And invoice rounding accounts that will be posting any differences with your rounding procedures. You have AP documents that you post in Business Central. We normally round to 1, 2, 3 decimals according. Well, that's something that we do in the implementation, but you understand the concept of the rounding. And sometimes when you receive, in this case, a vendor invoice, it might not have only 2 or 3 decimals, okay? So you need to actually pay what the invoice says, but in the system, what you do is we just need to round that difference, and those is cents that in order to post that we have, or these small differences, rounding differences, we need a specific expenditure account to actually post those gains or losses. It depends, right? But it's just for rounding purposes. It's not nothing but important maybe, or the value is not significant, right? But anyway, in order to actually post into Business Central and have a control of the specific operations that we would normally do, for instance, with exchange rates. So anytime you have exchange rates, well, the calculations would be more than 2 decimals always, right? For those operations when you import or when you export. Well, also it's not only with exchange rates, but the idea is that you're going to receive documents that have more than or different decimals that the ones that you use in your system, and that's why we are always rounding, and the differences will be posted in the specific GL account that you decide here, okay, for payments, for invoices. So we have roundings in the entire AP area. We have tolerance for debit, credits when you offer credit, debit, debit, credit, roundings account when they apply, and so on, okay? So that's why we call them specific. Just tell us which classification you have. This has no combination with other columns. It's just either domestic or foreign, simple as, and immediately continue to select your GL accounts. The webinar actually, or the purpose for me as a consultant, is to explain you where are your GL accounts whenever you need a procedure and review the actual GL accounts used, or whenever you implement, you can as well review. Well, but for those of you who are accountants, if you think you can take a look at your current status with your chart of accounts and the GL accounts used for different procedures and review that everything is correct. Okay, now, how then do we verify that? Okay, you could continue with the actual PowerPoint to review where everything is and all the instructions will be there. So we can dedicate now some of our time. We are almost in the final part of the webinar. The idea is that I'm going to use a review a posted sales order as an example. Sales order. Excuse me, let's just review first an invoice. The sales invoice are actually registered already. We have deducted inventory when it applies. We have generated AR, taxes. We have just done all of them, okay? That's why I'm showing an already prepared document, okay? But here we have, of course, all the statistics. Just to review the value, well, we have a specific amount of 1,901. Okay, but including your taxes, this the value for the tax 114. Then this is the total value for the sales operation. And if we just take a look at some other values like the profit, we have 420. The original profit, well, here would be, and other calculations for, well, this is for the United States. Okay, very important. You might have different calculations. In the United States, I have for the state of Atlanta specific taxation rates. In this case, for 42, and in Atlanta, in the jurisdiction, these are just cities, okay? But this will be applying with your own calculations in your country. Whenever you want to see your statistics for taxes, remember that we have, in this case, since the value amount base, that is only the value of the sales operation, we are going to need to add now with the tax rate, the tax amount or value that we need to actually consider in our tax withholdings and our taxation procedures and reports. So every line will have to be considered. In this case, we need to add for this specific Atlanta tax in Georgia 3%. Then we are working in Atlanta, we have a second local tax in the city with 1%. And for the Fulton County, we have a plus 2%, all right? So we are going to continue add taxes according to the jurisdiction in the USA to actually have different taxes rates. So as you can see by looking at the statistics, it's not only about the total that we see, but behind the scenes we have different type of amounts that need to be posted in our chart of accounts, because all the amounts that I have just reviewed before are actually just calculated, and once calculated, we need the specific GL accounts to post into those values into the correct GL account. Imagine trying to actually then post that through a general journal. It would require, it could be done, right? For those of you who are accountants, but it would take a while, you know. So the idea is that with the actual sales invoice document is going to help us to generate all those transactions automatically to post those amounts that I have mentioned into your actual system with the correct GL account. Let's just review now an open invoice. I'm going to create a sales order now, just to review how could you in this, at least in the sales orders, I don't have time to review purchase orders, credit memos, well, but I just wanted to explain how the procedure in all the Business Central documents could be in order to check the GL accounts used. For now, I'm just going to create a sales order. Okay, with the same amounts that I explained before, I'm just going to start from scratch with one document. Oh, and currently I have an overdue balance. Okay, well, that's fine. Anyway, what I'm going to do for this sales operation is include the item. I'm just going to start selling 10. In order to start calculating the first amounts for the total operation, I have taxes for 480. The base amount is 8,000, and here is the total. Okay, remember that we talk about discounts. Okay, the discounts for the invoice is here, is the total amount that we could discount from the total amount of the sales operation. But as well, we have a line discount that in this case well, could be applying only for the specific line. So we have different type of discounts, okay? Just to mention it. Now, let's continue. How do we know which GL accounts we're gonna be using whenever we use the Adatum Corporation? Let's just take a look. The Adatum Corporation currently, well, is in Atlanta as well, as you can see, is in Georgia. Well, and here is this demo environment is in the USA. Okay, so just to mention, this is a domestic type of customer. So if I just take a look, just if I just take a look immediately at the type of a customer, here is the Adatum Corporation customer that coming from the sales order procedures or the trading procedures is here. The general business posting group is considered to be domestic. The AR account that I'm going to use in this sales operation is coming from the customer posting group, and this is considered as well as domestic. You saw the metrics before, you have them in the PowerPoint whenever you need to review. But for now, in order to check in the system live, how am I going to know which GL accounts will be used just in any case, because I do not remember everything all the time, all the specific setups and all that is quite cumbersome to remember specifically for every transaction, every line. So we have in the posting section, but if we want to finalize this operation, we just would need to pause this transaction by clicking the pause button. But for now, I'm just going to first review the GL accounts by using the preview posting feature, which is very cool. It's going to, if I just review, it's going to tell me if everything is, of course, fine to be posted into the GL. But for now, it's telling me, oh, I need to add some information. We call the dimension is a specific value that is helping me for reporting purposes. Let me just review in the menu, where is this function? 1 second. The dimension, related, navigate, order, here is. And according to this, look at this. This is very interesting, by the way, just for you to take applause. We are going to select your GL accounts. Business Central is going to do that for us, but as well, it's going to take more information. This is for a sales operation in North America in the specific store number 2, that is the store North. So your financial information could carry more informational or additional data for you to later do BI or cool reports. This is what we call dimensions. Dimensions set entries, where I have different stores at different countries or areas. Okay, just to mention it, okay? And I'm just going to click on yes. And once again, I need to review the GL accounts that are going to be handled whenever I register this sales operation. Okay, currently I have different values that will be posted. Some of them were explained before for those of you who are new with the Business Central when we review the statistics. Now, here is even more detail. I have GL account entries. So we have, as an example, well, financial data. We have customer ledger entry, which means AR for your AR module entries. Item ledger entry, we are affecting your inventory. So we are telling now the warehouse that we need to decrease the inventory in some way, okay, by the specific unit of measure, etc. Taxes, detailed customer ledger entry, this is required for payments specifically. It's not only about the amount, but sometimes this is converted to a different exchange rate. This has also going to need to be affected by a discount only for this customer. So it's going to give you more detail for the customer, and at the end, of course, the value, okay, the value entry. For now, I could review all of these type of entries, but the most important for now is just to check the GL entries, where I'm affecting currently 9 lines or 9 GL accounts. In other words, this is automating the process to decreasing the inventory, to pay the taxes with the specific GL accounts, to do all of that. And let's just take a look as an example. With the account, I'm using the account 10,700 for my inventory. And look at this, I'm deducting from the inventory. Okay, the direct cost, the cost of materials as well has the same, of course, we have the same value. As another example, we are using the account 2016 for withholding the taxes, paying the taxes, I mean, okay, tax payable. And well, for the American version only, this is not for those of you who work within Latin America or the Caribbean. We normally would select the specific line amount for your specific percentages, okay, according to your products and your country, etc. But only in the USA, we as well need to separate different tax procedure according the city or the county, okay? But don't worry if you don't manage this type of localizations. And well, nothing needless to say, we have an accounts receivable. And if you remember, look at the presentation that I provide, we have a place, I'm just going to leave this open, when we have a GL account dedicated, and we need to know after this webinar where or how the sales order took the accounts receivable 10,400. Okay, and then once we have all of this, of course, we can see the specific amounts and the type of document. We are generating all these transactions from an invoice, and here the specific date, and here this is how from Business Central we are going to post into your chart of accounts all the specific transactions and the details and value for all your operations automatically for you. Okay, so this is the webinar for today. Thank you very much for attending, and see you next time.